Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about the basic defenses that all characters have in Pathfinder 2e, and the different places and uses that each has. Often, defense is something that isn't an active part of playing Pathfinder, from turn to turn outside of just taking actions like raising a shield. But making sure that there aren't any big holes in your defenses is a really important thing to keep in mind whenever you're making your character, and also whenever you're making an encounter as a GM, because if a monster has one really big weakness, it's good to know about it beforehand. Alright, so to start off with, obviously the most basic defensive characteristic is hit points. Considering how basic hit points are, there isn't really all that much to say here, except that the more hit points you have, the better. Seriously, you can never have too much HP, and that's like triply true if you're expecting to be in melee range frequently. The thing to consider is that, in a lot of ways, how damaged something or someone is doesn't really matter, as much as you might think at a first glance. If someone has more than 0 hit points, they're almost certainly just as dangerous as if they were at full health. Generally speaking, that's why focusing on taking out creatures who have low health is so important, because 2 injured enemies is probably twice as dangerous as 1 enemy that is at 0 hit points and 1 at full health. People being grievously injured doesn't actually make them less dangerous. Armor class is also incredibly basic, though there is slightly more going on with it. While obviously having a high AC is better than having a low AC, it is impossible to have such a high AC on a build that you're basically impossible to hit, so long as you're at least in reasonable encounters. That isn't how Pathfinder 2e works, fundamentally. Instead, there are expected AC values for PC characters, which can generally be met by wearing armor whose maximum dex bonus is equivalent to your dex bonus. While this is absolutely more important for melee characters, since they're going to be getting attacked the most, it's still something to consider for backline characters, since you're still gonna get attacked every once in a while on the backline. Now, heavy armor is actually better than light and medium and unarmored, but not everyone has access to it, and the expected values are based on light and medium armor. But with those out of the way, let's talk about saving throws. Saving throws are by far the most interesting part of defense in 2e, and there's a lot to take into consideration with them. Probably the most significant thing is just how much class choice impacts saving throws. While ability score modifiers are obviously important, having a high dex means that your reflex save is going to be better, class choice is arguably more important, especially at higher levels. Whenever a PC's class advances their saving throw proficiencies beyond expert, PCs get some crazy shit, like turning all successful saves into critical successes, or turning critical failures into just failures. Honestly, this is one of the big things that distinguishes player characters from NPCs and makes them way crazier. Let's break down each save individually though, since they're all important, but some are arguably more important than others. Will saves are honestly pretty scary. In my experience, will saves come up the least in most campaigns, but they are incredibly impactful when they do. Most of the time, failing a will save is gonna come with some other horrible effect that's gonna be a much bigger pain than failing most other saving throws. Getting charmed or falling asleep in the middle of the night absolutely sucks, and it's one of the big reasons why I generally recommend increasing wisdom on most characters. While there aren't all that many classes that rapidly improve their will save proficiency, and even less that are actually wisdom-based classes, it's a fantastic boost whenever you can get your hands on it. Fortitude saves are just about as bad as will saves in regards to how severe their impacts can be, but I don't think that they are quite as debilitating. They are a little bit more common, but often failing a save against a disease isn't as bad as having your mental faculties be replaced with those of a snail. With that being said, diseases and poisons are absolutely lethal in Pathfinder 2e. If you've got a bad fort save, then seriously, they are probably one of the things that's most likely to kill your character. Honestly, I think that characters are probably going to have a decent constitution, seeing as it also impacts HP, and everyone wants more HP. But you shouldn't underestimate just how useful having a good Fortitude save can be. Finally, Reflex saves are the weird ones. 90% of Reflex saves that characters are going to have to make are going to be basic Reflex saves against damaging effects, which generally are a bit less threatening than the status conditions often supplied by will and fort saves. Damage just isn't quite as scary. On the other hand, Reflex saves are absolutely the most common type of saving throw to run into, and it feels like a solid 70% of the saving throws that I end up having to make are Reflex saves. So while it can feel like they're less important because they're normally just against damage, having a character with a stupidly good Reflex save is so satisfying, since you avoid a stupid amount of damage because of how frequently it comes up. Plus, most characters aren't gonna complain about having more dexterity. So yeah, the main defensive parts of every character sheet are incredibly simple, but that doesn't mean that there isn't nuance to them. Trying to find the balance between all of them is incredibly rewarding, but at the same time, it can also just be really fun to have one saving throw be massively better than the others. And honestly, it's kind of hilarious. I'm speaking from personal experience here, because I've played a character with a stupidly high reflex save, and critically succeeding against 5 breath weapons in a row is insanely funny, especially once you try to explain how you just dodged everything. But don't forget though, there's a lot of stuff that I've talked about, but when it comes down to it, you can always use more HP. Thanks for watching. Defense isn't exactly the most invigorating topic, since most of the choices are made during character creation, but it's still important. Do you have any tips or questions regarding managing defense in Pathfinder 2e? Let me know in a comment down below, and you can always consider subscribing or joining up as a member while you're down there. My members help me out an unreasonable amount. Regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.